just about sailing September. It'll be a bit short, quite a bit shorter this week this time, because I went on for ages with the last one, looking at the glass fibre work. So as you've seen from the thumbnail, which I put up, obviously there's been some unwanted excitement down at the boatyard very recently. Later on, actually, I'll cover on. I've taken these sort of covers down to the wood that was here, because there's cables running behind there. So we'll have a look at preparations to start doing that stuff. We'll have a look at some calculations and some things I want to do with the water tank. But first of all, let's have a look at what this fire business was all about. So I didn't stay on the boat last week. I'd meant to, but the weather was just a bit horrible and I couldn't really do much work, so I got other things done. And then I had a knock on the door very early in the morning. It was my brother-in-law, and he had one of the local news sites open on his iPad with a major news story to do with the boatyard here, which he kind of showed me. So sort of blinking, I'm not very good at mornings, sort of looking at this iPad that he showed me. Well, anyway, let's have a look at it. So you know that thing where your brain sort of sees something, doesn't quite believe it? Fire at Iron Wharf in Faversham. What? That's where my boat is? So what's going on here? 8 boats in dry dock have been destroyed. And then you look at this picture, and I can't quite see where it is, and think, is that next to where Serenity is? Just what's going on here? So I basically got in the car and drove down there. There's a police cordon on all entrances, and the first thing I saw was this fire engine coming out. Actually, it's going to get some more water from a nearby hydrant. I spoke to the police officer, and he definitely wouldn't let me in, but did say that he believed that my boat hadn't been damaged. Serenity is just past that yellow container, by the way. That's where the water is, and the pumping. Serenity is just behind where that fire engine is. So I went through to a different entrance, and that on the left is Serenity's mast. So I knew at least that was sticking out of something, hopefully a boat and not a blob of blue plastic. I then found another way. I couldn't actually see the hull, but this was why they were keeping us out, because they were spraying the water onto a shed which had some gas bottles. So at that point I basically went home and tuned into the news to see if I could find any more info.
A man's been arrested on suspicion of arson after a fire at a boatyard in Faversham. 8 boats, 3 porter cabins and a workshop were on fire in Iron Wharf in the early hours of this morning. More than 30 firefighters were at the scene at its height. An area of the wharf remains closed while inquiries continue.
So when I first went there, I don't know if you remember, but this was the view from the back of Serenity. All these lovely wooden boats and a workshop, and as I mentioned at the time, a delightful place. And today this is what met my eyes. Just a scene of absolute horrible desolation and a really acrid, nasty sort of smell of the smoke. This boat here, somebody told me that this is one of the small boats, the little boats that was involved in the Dunkirk evacuation, and it's now just a third of a boat. It's a charred wreck. I mean, what a sad way to go out. And there's just the transom of another boat. And some of these boats were people's homes, and there was at least one person who was very lucky to escape with his life, because he was staying overnight. And here we can see there's Serenity of the blue hull to the left, and just over here is this, again, this scene of absolute... I've never seen anything like this before, and it's just absolutely horrific, and my heart goes out to all the people who were affected by this. So not very pleasant at all. I mean, obviously you can see from the distances that I was quite lucky and had the wind been blowing the other way, and the fire crew's not got here in time, things could have been very different. But as I say, you know, I'm not one of these people who say, oh, that was close, but it's just a shame for the people a real big shame for the people that it did actually affect. So okie doke. Let's have a look at another couple of little jobs. Firstly, and you can see I've taken them out, but taking these wooden bits off and having a look at sort of the electrical stuff and so on underneath, because this is where the main wires run. As I've said, I think I've said on numerous occasions, I want to sand all the wood. Well, I don't want to. I really hate sanding, but there's a lot of wood here, so I'm going to do a couple of test sands on these trim pieces, which I think are also conduits for the for the wiring, and I'm going to rewire the boat as well. Very, very saggy roof line, but I've done nothing with this. I've deliberately done nothing because I wanted to do these things first. So I'm going to pull these down, and one thing that's, I don't know if you can see it, let me switch this on. There's a switch here, and I have literally no idea what it does, so it'd be very interesting to take that off and see if there are any wires behind it and where it leads to. Now, how disappointing is this? Literally for the last 2 years I've been flicking this switch on and off to see if anything changes, and there's absolutely nothing attached to it. So I think somebody's put that there just as a brilliant April Fool joke. Well, it certainly fooled me, didn't it? But what a shame. I was hoping to... oh, anyway. Okay, so this could have actually been an awful lot worse. This is the wiring that comes from the second switch panel. This is mainly, well, it's solely the lights, including the navigation lights, whereas the one over there is things like the GPS system, the tiller pilot, VHF radio, etc. So as I say, this could have been a lot worse, although I'm not quite sure why they felt the need to drill a hole through what something is quite structural, because the you can see the backing plates for, this is where the rigging attaches above. I'm not sure why you'd actually want to make a hole through there, because it could quite easily go on a conduit held on the outside with the board out here. So I'll probably get rid of those and plug them up. I don't think it's weakened it, but and then we have this piece of delight here. So I'm going to have fun tracing all this. It's nice that it's divided into two, because this is going to be my sort of, this is going to be secondary, because I really need the mast down to get this sorted out. But I shall kind of, I think what I might do is draw up a wiring diagram the way I'd want to do it, and then just completely redo it. I don't know how much of this I need to trace at the moment, but we shall see. I need to look into it a bit further first, I think. And the other thing I want to get sorted out is the water tanks, which are underneath where I'm sitting at the moment. I've had a flexible one, I've had a 100 litre and a 200 litre one, and I think the water that I showed sort of sloshing about in the bilges, which was a bit salty, but it wasn't very salty. I think most of that was actually water that leaked from the flexible tanks, and I think it's when it gets rough, and perhaps I hadn't tied them down, but I just don't trust flexible tanks, so I want to go for more rigid type tanks, but it's an awkward shape, so let's have a look at the sort of problems that I face and what sort of, I want to get about 150 litres of water if I can. That will be about the ideal amount, and hopefully save a bit of the space as well. So let's have a measure up and have a look and see how that might work. Right, so what I've done is I've measured this, and this possibly doesn't make much sense to anybody. These are the kind of depths from the corner here. And my idea, and then what I did is I kind of drew these out so I could get the different shapes. I cut out, oh, I've lost them. I cut out a little piece of paper to see how they'd fit. This is lengthwise, and this blue line represents the depth going down here where the hole slopes up, and this is the deepest part. But anyway, this is the profile of the tank that I need to do. And I cut out a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to try that on. I did try and do snazzier drawings, but I've discovered how really bad I am at doing 3D drawings and trying to show a tank in it. Should have done it from the other side. Yeah, so this is not one of my skills. But cutting out cardboard, that's the way of doing it. Years and years of watching Blue Peter helps, I think. And if you don't know what Blue Peter is, well, you've had a very deprived childhood. Right, so here's the thing. Although it's great to do drawings and things, it's far better to actually get a piece of cardboard and see if it fits. So basically the idea is the tank is going to go from there, that's towards the stern of the boat, to about there, to give me a little bit of storage space for other things, and it gets a lot shallower as you come up to here. Yeah, so that's the curvature of the hole there. That's just sort of 10-12 centimetres, whereas that's a lot bigger. So imagine this is the end of one of the tanks, of the tank, sorry. This is going to be dropped in through here and then slid along. So I think what I've decided to do is I am going to take this middle section out and then replace it. So I've put some tape along here and made this just a couple of centimetres bigger, and imagine this is the end of the tank, so the whole thing will kind of be lowered in here and then slid in this direction, and that just clears under there, so that's just big enough. So now what I'm going to do is actually measure this and then figure out, so I've added kind of a centimetre that way, 3 centimetres that way, and see what difference that makes in the volume. Right, so let's measure up the actual width. So I originally had 40, but I can actually go to 41, so it's not massively different, but every little bit helps. And the smaller edge, which I previously had at 25, didn't I? That's gone up to 29, and the longer edge, which I had at 30, has gone up to 33, and that previously gave me a volume of 132. So let's get the calculator. Where we go? Oh, yeah. Right, so let's work out. 132 is what I theoretically worked out, and obviously it's going to be a bit more than that, which is great because I was aiming for 150, so let's see if we can get to that. So it's 120, which is the length, that's in centimetres, times 41, which is the slightly bigger thing, times, and we'll do the smaller bit and then add the little triangle at the bottom on, times 29 equals 142,680. Obviously to get litres we divide it by 1,000, so that's by 29, and now I need to add the other bit on, which is difference between 29 and 33, which is 4, so 4 times 41 times 120 equals, divided by 2, because obviously it's sort of triangle-y type shape, equals 9840. So basically 9.40 plus 142,680 equals 152,520. So that is 152.5 litres. Yeah, so that's brilliant. So that's gone up. It's not a huge amount, but 150 litres is what I kind of wanted. So all I've got to do now is figure out a way of actually making this tank and doing the difficult bit. So there we go, that's it for September. Hopefully another one later on, and I really do need to get things in gear and get things sort of speeded up, but I'll talk about reasons and so on behind that and so on. You know, sometimes life just takes over a little bit, doesn't it? But anyway, see you next time.